Have you ever felt as though you're walking on a treadmill in life, moving, sweating, putting in effort yet remaining in the same exact spot? No matter how much you try, the sense of progress seems to slip through your fingers. It's frustrating, isn't it? But here's a thought. Maybe it's not about how much effort you're adding, but about what you refuse to let go. The Buddha once taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Our thoughts shape our reality, and the habits born from those thoughts shape our lives. Many of us hold on to patterns that no longer serve us, habits that quietly steal our energy, blur our clarity, and keep us chained to the same cycle of dissatisfaction. Today, we're not here to pile more tasks onto your plate or hand you another to-do list. Instead, we're here to uncover the invisible ropes holding you back. 10 habits that once loosened can set you free to walk lighter, think clearer, and live more peacefully. Let's begin. 1. The trap of people-pleasing. Imagine standing in a crowd with a mask on, constantly switching it depending on who you're speaking to. With your parents, one face. With your friends, another. At work, yet another. After a while, you forget what your real face even looks like. That's what people-pleasing does. This habit often comes from a deep desire to be accepted, loved, or validated. We bend ourselves into uncomfortable shapes, say yes when our entire being is whispering no, and swallow our truth to avoid conflict. For a moment, it feels safe we keep the peace, but over time, the cost is enormous. Exhaustion, resentment, and disconnection from who we truly are. In Buddhism, authenticity is not just encouraged, it's essential. The path to peace is not about impressing others, but about living in harmony with your true values. You cannot control the shifting opinions of others, they are like leaves blowing in the wind. But you can choose to stand rooted in your truth, no longer chasing approval. When you release the habit of people-pleasing, you don't become selfish. You become real. And realness is the ground where lasting peace is built. 2. The prison of overthinking. Have you ever laid in bed at night replaying conversations, analyzing decisions, or trying to predict outcomes that haven't even happened? That's the prison of overthinking. Your body may be resting, but your mind is running marathons. Overthinking is like trying to see the reflection in a pond while constantly stirring the water. The more you churn, the cloudier it becomes. And the tragedy is, the answers we seek often appear only when the water grows still. Buddhism points us toward mindfulness, the practice of simply being here, in this moment, without judgment. Overthinking keeps you trapped in imaginary scenarios, but mindfulness allows you to live in the real one. The future cannot be solved in advance, no matter how many times you replay it in your head. Instead of trying to predict every outcome, imagine allowing your thoughts to rise and fade like clouds drifting across the vast sky. No need to grab them, no need to fight them. Just let them pass. Peace is not about having no thoughts. It's about no longer being their prisoner. 3. The weight of worry. Picture yourself hiking up a mountain with a heavy backpack strapped to your shoulders. But here's the twist. Most of the rocks inside aren't even real. They're what-ifs, imagined problems, fears that may never come true. And yet, you carry them as if they weigh a ton. That's what constant worry does to your life. Worrying doesn't prevent tomorrow's struggles. It doesn't solve problems before they arrive. All it does is rob today of its joy and weigh down the present with imagined futures. In Buddhist philosophy, worry is a form of self-inflicted suffering. It pulls you away from the only moment you can truly live. Right now. Think about it. How many times have the things you worried about actually happened? More often than not, the storms you fear never arrive. And yet, by worrying, you've already lived through them 100 times in your mind. The antidote is mindfulness. By grounding yourself in the present, you gently put down the backpack of imagined burdens. You learn to focus on what is within your control and release the rest. When you do, life feels lighter freer, and far more beautiful than you realized it could be. 4. The shadow of self-doubt. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean. The horizon is wide, the possibilities endless, but you hesitate to step forward because a voice inside whispers, "What if you're not strong enough? What if you fail? What if you're not worthy?" That quiet voice is self-doubt, and it has stopped more dreams than failure ever has. In Buddhism, self-trust is seen as a vital part of awakening. Confidence doesn't mean arrogance, and faith doesn't mean blind belief. It means trusting in your own potential, in the seeds of wisdom and compassion already planted inside you. When you let self-doubt take over, you build invisible walls around yourself, limiting what you allow yourself to experience. Most self-doubt grows out of fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. But here's the truth. Those fears are nothing more than shadows. They only look large when you turn your back on the light. Once you face them directly, they begin to shrink. The Buddha's teachings remind us that everything we need is already within us. By letting go of the habit of questioning your own worth, you create space for courage to rise. And courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to move forward even when fear whispers in your ear. You are far more capable than you realize. Every step you take with trust in yourself is a step toward freedom. Believe in your inner strength, and the path ahead will reveal itself more clearly with each step. 5. Negative self-talk, the silent saboteur. There is a voice that follows us everywhere, not our parents, not our teachers, not our friends, but one that lives in the corners of our own mind. It speaks softly at first, almost unnoticed. You're not enough. You'll never succeed, why even try? And over time, if left unchallenged, this voice becomes the loudest one we hear. This is negative self-talk, perhaps the most destructive habit of all. Unlike external criticism, which we can walk away from, this voice echoes endlessly inside. It chips away at confidence, drains our energy, and quietly convinces us to abandon opportunities before we even try. What makes it so dangerous is its invisibility. We often don't even realize how cruelly we speak to ourselves. In Buddhism, the teaching of right speech isn't limited to how we address others. It extends inward, to the way we speak to ourselves. Words, whether spoken aloud or whispered in thought, carry immense power. If we plant seeds of self-hatred in our minds, those seeds will grow into weeds that choke our potential. Think about it. When you constantly repeat phrases like, "I'm not smart enough," or "I'll never change," you start to believe them. And once belief takes root, your actions follow. You stop trying, stop learning, stop reaching. Slowly, your life bends to match the story you've been telling yourself. This is the tragedy of negative self-talk. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But Buddhism offers us tools to break this cycle. One of the most powerful is mindfulness. When you learn to observe your thoughts, you realize something profound. Not every thought is true. Thoughts are like clouds drifting across the sky, temporary, changing without substance. By noticing your negative self-talk in the moment, you create a space to choose a different response. Instead of allowing that inner voice to declare, "I'm a failure," you can gently shift it to, "I'm learning, I'm growing, and that's enough." This small act of replacing judgment with compassion is the beginning of transformation. Another cornerstone of Buddhist practice is metta, or loving kindness. This practice invites us to extend compassion not only to strangers and loved ones, but also to ourselves. Through loving kindness meditation, you silently repeat phrases of goodwill. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be at peace. With consistent practice, this kindness begins to seep into your inner dialogue, replacing harshness with gentleness. Of course, the roots of negative self-talk often run deep. Childhood criticism, cultural expectations, or past failures may have carved these patterns into our minds. But Buddhism reminds us of anatta, the truth of no fixed self. Who you are is not permanent, not carved in stone. You are ever-changing, evolving, capable of rewriting the story you tell yourself. Surround yourself with positive influences, people who uplift you, environments that support growth, books and teachings that inspire rather than diminish. Reinforce your worth with simple practices. Write down small victories, celebrate progress instead of perfection, and keep a record of how far you've come. These daily acts nourish the seeds of self-respect and slowly quiet the inner critic. Meditation deepens this process. By sitting with your mind, you begin to witness thoughts without attachment. You see clearly that a thought like "I'm worthless" is nothing more than a passing cloud. The moment you stop clinging to it, it loses its power. Over time, meditation creates a spacious, calm awareness where positive, constructive thoughts naturally replace the destructive ones. And above all, practice patience. Habits formed over years will not disappear overnight. There will be days when the old voice sneaks back in, whispering familiar doubts. But each time you pause, breathe, and choose kindness over cruelty, you weaken its hold. Slowly, these small moments add up, reshaping your inner world. One day, you'll notice that the voice has changed. Instead of tearing you down, it begins to lift you up. And when that happens, you'll understand a truth that Buddhism has always pointed toward: the way you speak to yourself is the way you shape your life. 6. Procrastination, the silent dream killer. Procrastination doesn't arrive with a loud crash. It slips in quietly, disguised as harmless thoughts. "I'll do it tomorrow. I work better under pressure. It's not urgent right now." And before we know it, days, weeks, or even years pass while our dreams remain untouched. This is why procrastination has been called the silent dream killer. It doesn't destroy potential in one blow, but by slowly starving it of action. At its heart, procrastination is a form of resistance. Instead of moving forward, we hide. Instead of facing discomfort, we escape into distractions. Buddhism speaks of right effort, virya, a quality of energy and diligence applied to the path of growth. When we procrastinate, we are walking in the opposite direction of right effort, choosing avoidance over presence and comfort over courage. The danger of procrastination lies in its deception. In the moment, it feels harmless, even comforting. We trade the challenge of starting for the temporary ease of delay. But each postponement adds weight to the mind. The tasks don't vanish. They sit like heavy stones in the background, fueling anxiety and guilt. And ironically, the more we delay, the heavier those stones feel. Why do we procrastinate? Often because of fear. Fear of failing. Fear of being judged. Fear that we might not be good enough. Sometimes it's not fear, but attachment clinging to comfort, preferring the softness of distraction over the sting of discipline. But Buddhism teaches that growth requires leaving the comfort zone, facing difficulty with steady courage. The Buddha encouraged his followers to meet discomfort directly, because only through effort do we uncover strength. So how do we begin to free ourselves from this habit? The first step is awareness. Through mindfulness, we catch ourselves in the act. You might notice I've spent the last hour scrolling through my phone instead of starting that project. That moment of noticing is powerful. It breaks the automatic cycle. With awareness, you can redirect your energy toward what truly matters. The second step is breaking down the mountain into stones. Often, we delay because a task feels impossibly large. By dividing it into smaller, manageable steps, the work becomes less intimidating. Each small action builds momentum, like a snowball gathering speed as it rolls down a hill. Consistency in small steps is the essence of right action, moving forward deliberately, rather than waiting for a perfect time that never comes. It also helps to examine the roots of your delay. Is it fear of failure? Then remind yourself that failure is not the opposite of progress, it is part of it. Every attempt, even imperfect, brings learning. Is it self-doubt? Then practice self-compassion, remembering the efforts you've made and victories you've achieved in the past. A supportive environment can also make all the difference. Surround yourself with people who inspire you to act, not to drift. Remove distractions, silence the notifications, create a dedicated space for work, and set gentle deadlines that keep you accountable. Reward yourself for progress, however small, to train your mind to associate effort with fulfillment. And here is a crucial lesson from Buddhism. Learn to embrace discomfort. Starting a difficult task, stepping into uncertainty, or persisting through fatigue will always feel uncomfortable at first. But discomfort is not your enemy, it is your teacher. By leaning into it instead of avoiding it, you grow stronger, more resilient, and less enslaved to the habit of delay. Practicing gratitude can shift your entire relationship with work. Instead of thinking, I have to do this, remind yourself, I get to do this. Tasks become not burdens, but opportunities, chances to learn, to create, to contribute. Gratitude transforms obligation into purpose, making it easier to act with energy rather than avoidance. In the end, procrastination is not simply about lost time, it is about lost life. Each day spent waiting for the right moment is a day we cannot reclaim. By applying mindfulness, cultivating right effort, and embracing discomfort, we can loosen procrastination's grip and step into a life of clarity, momentum, and purpose. 7. The habit of comparison. There is a quiet thief of joy that often sneaks into our minds without warning. It whispers as you scroll through social media, as you walk into a room, or as you hear about someone else's success. Its message is simple but poisonous. Look at them. They are ahead of you. They are better than you. You are not enough. This thief is comparison, and left unchecked, it robs us of happiness, peace, and self-worth. In today's world, comparison is almost unavoidable. Every highlight reel flashes across our screens, smiling faces, career milestones, perfect relationships. But what we see is only a carefully chosen snapshot, not the whole truth. Behind every smile is struggle. Behind every success is effort and pain we may never see. Yet, when we compare our behind the scenes to someone else's polished surface, dissatisfaction grows like weeds in the garden of the mind. Buddhism offers us a radical alternative to envy, mudita, or sympathetic joy. Instead of seeing another's success as a threat, mudita invites us to celebrate it. Imagine how freeing it is to genuinely rejoice in someone else's happiness without feeling diminished by it. Their light does not dim yours, just as one candle lighting another does not lose its flame, but instead spreads brightness. But comparison doesn't just spark envy, it also creates a subtle form of attachment. We become attached to an illusion, an idea of what our lives should look like, based on someone else's circumstances. This attachment, the Buddha taught, is one of the roots of suffering. It distracts us from our own path and blinds us to the beauty already present in our lives. The antidote is mindfulness. When you catch yourself comparing their career is ahead of mine, their life looks easier than my pause, breathe. Redirect your awareness to your own journey. Reflect on your progress, your strengths, and the quiet victories you may have overlooked. Mindfulness breaks the cycle of unconscious comparison and replaces it with conscious gratitude. Gratitude itself is another powerful practice. Each day, take a moment to note the blessings in your life, the opportunities you've had, the lessons you've learned, the people who care for you. Gratitude shifts your attention from scarcity to abundance, from lack to wholeness. When you are grounded in gratitude, you stop measuring your worth against others and begin to honor your own path. Buddhism also reminds us of upekkha, or equanimity, the practice of letting go of judgment and comparison and resting in balance. Life is not a race, and each person's journey unfolds at its own rhythm. Think of life as a vast garden. Some flowers bloom early, some bloom late, some bear fruit, others offer shade. Each has its purpose, and comparing them makes no sense. Your garden is yours alone, and its timing is perfect for you. And remember, everything is impermanent. Today's success may fade. Today's struggle may blossom into tomorrow's strength. Knowing this truth helps us release the urge to compare. Instead, we can focus on cultivating what matters most: our growth, our values, and our inner peace. When you notice comparison creeping in, be gentle with yourself. Don't judge the thought, simply recognize it and let it pass. Replace it with compassion, both for yourself and for others. With time, you'll find that the need to measure yourself against someone else dissolves, and in its place arises a deeper appreciation for your own unique unfolding journey. 8. The fear of failure. Few things paralyze the human spirit like the fear of failure. It whispers to us before we begin. What if you're not good enough? What if you fall short? What if everyone sees you stumble? And so, instead of moving forward, we hesitate, we wait, we hide. Opportunities slip away, not because we weren't capable, but because we never gave ourselves permission to try. At its root, this fear grows from our craving for certainty, approval, and control. Past criticism, rejection, or disappointment often plant the seed, and each painful memory waters it until the fear feels insurmountable. But Buddhism teaches us that fear is not a wall, it is a mirage. When we turn to face it, it dissolves. One of the Buddha's central teachings is anicca, or impermanence. Nothing in life, whether joy or sorrow, victory or defeat, lasts forever. Failure feels permanent only when we cling to it, but in truth, it is as fleeting as success. When we embrace impermanence, we realize that a setback is just a passing moment, not a final verdict on who we are. The Buddha also spoke of right view, seeing reality clearly without the distortion of fear. The mind tends to magnify failure, imagining worst-case scenarios far larger than reality. Right view reminds us to bring balance back into perspective. Failure may sting, but it is rarely the catastrophe we imagine. More often, it is a stepping stone, a teacher dressed in difficulty. But why does failure feel so personal? Because we confuse it with identity. We believe, if I fail, then I am a failure. Buddhism offers the liberating truth of anatta, or non-self. Who you are is not frozen in a single moment or outcome. Identity is fluid, shaped by choices, actions, and growth. You are not your mistakes. You are the effort you bring, the lessons you learn, and the way you rise again after falling. That is why the path of right effort is so crucial. Right effort doesn't demand perfection. It asks us to keep showing up steadily, mindfully, courageously, without attachment to results. When we focus on process rather than outcome, fear loosens its grip. Each step forward becomes progress, regardless of whether it leads to triumph or temporary setback. Mindfulness is another powerful antidote. When fear begins to creep in, when your mind races ahead to possible failures, you can anchor yourself in the present. Notice the fear without judgment. Let it rise and let it pass, like a wave rolling across the ocean. By focusing on what you can do right now, you reduce the overwhelming pressure of what if and step into the clarity of what is. Buddhism also encourages us to cultivate shoshin, or beginner's mind. A beginner doesn't expect mastery. They approach each task with openness and curiosity, understanding that mistakes are part of the path. With a beginner's mind, failure transforms from an enemy into a guide, teaching lessons that success alone cannot reveal. Every misstep carries wisdom, shaping us into more resilient and compassionate beings. Yet perhaps the most important practice is self-compassion. Fear of failure often grows louder because of our inner critic, the harsh voice demanding perfection, punishing every flaw. To quiet it, we must practice metta, or loving kindness, toward ourselves. Speak to yourself as you would to a dear friend, with encouragement, forgiveness, and gentleness. Remind yourself that perfection is not the goal, growth is. Failure will always exist, but it does not have to control us. With impermanence, right view, right effort, mindfulness, beginner's mind, and self-compassion, failure becomes less of a threat and more of a teacher. It ceases to paralyze and begins to guide. And when we no longer fear failure, we discover something extraordinary: the freedom to live, to try, and to grow without restraint. 9. Dwelling on the past, escaping the trap of yesterday. The past has a strange power over us. A single memory, a moment of regret, or a missed opportunity can replay in our minds like a broken record. We revisit conversations that ended years ago, mistakes we cannot undo, or dreams that never unfolded. Each replay keeps us tied to yesterday, while life continues to unfold right now. Dwelling on the past is like trying to walk forward while staring only into the rearview mirror. You cannot see the road ahead, and eventually, you stumble. Buddhism reminds us that the only reality we truly possess is this present moment. Yesterday has dissolved, tomorrow has not yet arrived. Yet so often, we give our energy to shadows of what no longer exists. In doing so, we lose sight of the beauty and possibilities that are here in front of us. The Buddha often spoke of dukkha, the dissatisfaction that arises when we cling to things that are impermanent. Memories, identities, and emotions from the past are all fleeting, yet we treat them as if they were permanent fixtures. When we replay a painful memory, hold on to guilt, or long for better days, we are grasping at smoke. That attachment intensifies suffering, keeping us chained to what cannot return. The practice of mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools for releasing this trap. Mindfulness doesn't demand that we erase the past. It simply invites us to notice it without being consumed by it. When a memory surfaces, instead of wrestling with it, you can acknowledge it gently, breathe, and then return to the present. This simple act of awareness loosens the grip of the past and reminds you, I am here, now. Equally important is the principle of anicca, or impermanence. Nothing remains the same. Our joys fade, our sorrows shift, even our identities evolve. When you dwell on the past, you're clinging to what no longer exists. By embracing impermanence, you free yourself from this illusion. The events of yesterday cannot hold you captive unless you hand them the key. Another practice that dissolves the weight of the past is forgiveness. Much of our dwelling comes from wounds we haven't healed: anger towards someone else, resentment for injustice, or guilt for our own missteps. Forgiveness does not mean condoning or forgetting. It means releasing the chains of bitterness, so they no longer anchor you in suffering. When you forgive yourself, you loosen the burden of guilt. When you forgive others, you stop allowing their actions to dictate your peace. Forgiveness is not for them, it is for your freedom. Buddhism also teaches anatta, or non-self, the truth that we are not fixed identities bound to past stories. You are not the same person you were when that mistake was made or that opportunity was lost. You are ever-changing, shaped not by the past itself, but by how you choose to respond now. When you stop defining yourself by your past, you rediscover the freedom to write a new story. One way to shift from regret to appreciation is through gratitude. When the mind begins to spiral into what could have been, gently redirect it to what is. What blessings are present right now? What lessons have those past experiences gifted you? Gratitude reframes the past not as a prison, but as a teacher that shaped the ground you now walk on. Reflection, too, has its place. Buddhism does not ask us to ignore the past entirely, but to use it wisely. Reflection becomes dangerous when it turns into obsession. But when done mindfully, it allows us to extract wisdom without being trapped by the memory. You can look back not with regret, but with curiosity. What did this teach me? How has it helped me grow? In this way, the past becomes a guide, not a cage. Ultimately, dwelling on the past is like carrying a heavy bag of stones wherever you go. Each memory you refuse to release adds to the weight. But when you practice mindfulness, embrace impermanence, forgive, and cultivate gratitude, you begin to set those stones down one by one. And with each release, you walk more lightly into the present moment, where true freedom and peace reside. 10. Neglecting body and mind, forgetting the two sacred temples. Your body and mind are like twin temples, sacred, interconnected, and inseparable. To neglect one is to weaken the other. Yet, in the race of modern life, we often ignore this truth. We push past exhaustion, skip meals, numb stress with distractions, and treat rest as a luxury rather than a necessity. Slowly, this neglect erodes our strength, our clarity, and our peace, leaving us drained and dissatisfied. Buddhism emphasizes the practice of right effort, a steady, balanced energy directed toward well-being and growth. Right effort is not about overexertion or relentless striving. It is about cultivating harmony, tending to both body and mind with equal care, recognizing that they rise and fall together. When the body is neglected, the mind becomes restless and clouded. When the mind is ignored, the body carries stress and dis-ease. To live fully, we must nurture both. The body is not a burden to drag through life. It is the vessel through which we experience it. With it, we move, feel, and act. Yet, many of us treat the body like a disposable tool, skipping nourishment, sacrificing sleep, and pushing through fatigue until it rebels in the form of illness or burnout. The Buddha taught moderation and mindfulness in every aspect of life, including how we care for the body. Eating with awareness, resting when tired, and moving with intention are not small luxuries. They are acts of reverence toward the life we've been given. Exercise, for instance, is more than a pursuit of strength or appearance. It is a way of honoring the body's natural need for movement and energy. Whether through yoga, walking in nature, swimming, or mindful stretching, movement keeps the body flexible, resilient, and alive. Similarly, food is more than fuel, it is a form of medicine. When we eat carelessly, filling ourselves with processed foods or overeating from stress, we cloud not only our bodies, but also our minds. But when we eat with awareness, choosing foods that are whole and nourishing, we create clarity, stability, and vitality that ripple into every part of life. Neglect also often springs from perfectionism and unrealistic demands. Many push themselves to exhaustion, trying to meet external standards of beauty, productivity, or success. But Buddhism reminds us of the power of self-compassion. To care for the body is not vanity, it is kindness. Self-compassion means listening to the body when it whispers for rest, respecting its limits, and granting it the same patience you would give a dear friend. This compassion is not weakness, it is the foundation of balance. The mind, too, requires care. It is the seat of thought, emotion, and perception. Yet, in the noise of daily stress, we often overload it with endless worries, information, and distractions. Left unattended, the mind grows cluttered and heavy. Buddhism places great importance on mental cultivation practices that bring clarity, balance, and peace to the inner world. Meditation is at the heart of this care. To sit in stillness, watching the breath, observing thoughts as they rise and fall, is like sweeping dust from the floor of a temple. Slowly, the clutter clears, and the mind becomes spacious and calm. Meditation reduces stress, strengthens emotional resilience, and helps us see our thoughts for what they are, passing events, not ultimate truths. Even a few minutes a day, whether breathing quietly, practicing guided visualization, or repeating phrases of loving kindness, can restore balance to both mind and body. Ultimately, to neglect body and mind is to forget the very tools through which we awaken. But when we nurture them, feeding the body with wholesome care, feeding the mind with stillness and compassion, we create a foundation strong enough to carry us through the storms of life. The body and mind are not obstacles to enlightenment. They are the path itself. Treat them as sacred, and they will carry you far. Another cornerstone of mental well-being is the cultivation of a wholesome inner attitude. Buddhism calls this right thought, the practice of nurturing thoughts rooted in kindness, compassion, and clarity. When the mind leans into worry, fear, or self-criticism, it creates tension that drains both body and spirit. But when we guide our thoughts toward generosity, encouragement, and self-compassion, the entire inner landscape begins to change. This simple shift in perspective is not about ignoring reality, but about choosing a healthier lens through which to see it. A compassionate thought can spark confidence, and a confident mind can reshape the course of a life. Beyond meditation and positive thought, the mind also thrives on lifelong learning. Just as the body needs exercise to stay strong, the mind needs stimulation to stay sharp. Reading, learning new skills, and exploring creativity keep the intellect awake and the spirit curious. In Buddhism, the pursuit of wisdom is not a destination, but a journey without end. When we challenge ourselves to grow, we remain open, ready to see life in new ways and to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world. Stress, however, is one of the greatest obstacles to both learning and clarity. Modern life often demands more than we feel we can give, pulling us into cycles of exhaustion. Left unchecked, stress corrodes both health and happiness. Buddhism offers us practical antidotes: mindful breathing, meditation, the deliberate choice to pause. These practices quiet the storm and return us to balance. And through the principle of right effort, we are reminded not to push ourselves relentlessly, but to walk the middle path, balancing work with rest, striving with stillness. By caring for ourselves in this way, we protect our mental health and cultivate peace even in the midst of pressure. The truth is simple yet profound. The body and mind are not separate. When one is neglected, the other suffers. But when both are honored, they become the foundation of a life filled with resilience, clarity, and joy. In Buddhism, this is the essence of right effort, the ongoing practice of nurturing both body and mind so that they may support our spiritual and everyday lives. Neglecting yourself, whether physically or mentally, is one of the surest ways to fall out of harmony. But when you weave mindfulness, compassion, balance, and continuous learning into your daily life, you transform neglect into nourishment. You remember that this body is not a burden, but a gift. That this mind is not a prison, but a field of possibility. And by tending to both, you prepare the ground for wisdom and peace to flourish. These 10 habits, whether it's people-pleasing, overthinking, dwelling on the past, or neglecting your body and mind, are not life sentences. They are simply obstacles we can choose to step beyond. Buddhism reminds us that growth is not about adding more to who we are, but about letting go of what weighs us down. So imagine a life where your worth is no longer chained to the opinions of others, where fear does not dictate your choices, where the past no longer steals the present, and where your body and mind move together in harmony. This life is possible, not someday, but starting now, in the choices you make each moment. The journey to becoming your best self is not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about the quiet courage to recognize what no longer serves you and to release it with compassion. It's about choosing balance, honoring your body, nurturing your mind, and allowing your heart to guide you. True freedom, the Buddha taught, comes from within. It comes from letting go of clinging, loosening the grip of fear, and opening to the present moment with clarity and love. Every small step you take toward releasing these habits is a step toward freedom, toward a life of deeper joy, balance, and peace. As you walk this path, remember, setbacks are not failures. They are part of the process. Growth is rarely linear. It unfolds like a spiral, returning again and again to old lessons until they are fully understood. Be patient with yourself, celebrate small victories, and know that every moment of effort is moving you closer to your highest potential. This is the gift of Buddhist wisdom, the reminder that transformation begins not with the grand, but with the simple, with a single conscious choice, with one mindful breath, with the decision to let go of what no longer serves and to embrace what brings peace. Thank you for walking this journey with me today. If this teaching resonated with you, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe so together we can continue exploring the path of wisdom, compassion, and inner strength. Remember, the power to transform your life is already within you. Honor your body, care for your mind, trust your path, and know that with each step you take, you are becoming more of who you were always meant to be.